In a small, quiet town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved at its own unhurried pace. At the heart of this community stood Maplewood Middle School, an old brick building surrounded by towering oak trees. It was here that Miss Clara Bennett, a well-meaning but often misunderstood teacher, found herself at the center of an event that would ripple through the lives of everyone involved. Clara had been teaching for over a decade. She prided herself on her dedication to her students, believing firmly in discipline and structure as tools for growth. But sometimes, her methods leaned too far toward rigidity, leaving little room for understanding or flexibility. Her intentions were never cruel. She simply wanted what she believed was best for her students. However, good intentions don't always lead to positive outcomes. One sunny afternoon, during the last period of the day, Clara noticed something unusual about one of her students, 12-year-old Maya Johnson. Maya was a bright, curious girl with a warm smile that lit up any room she entered. She loved art, poetry, and spending time with her younger brother after school. Today, though, Maya seemed unusually self-conscious. Her shoulders hunched slightly, and she avoided making eye contact with anyone, including her closest friends. As the class worked quietly on their assignments, Clara walked around the room, checking each student's progress. When she reached Maya's desk, her eyes caught sight of something unexpected. Maya's usually neatly braided hair appeared unkempt, with stray strands sticking out awkwardly. To Clara, it looked messy and unkept, a stark contrast to the neatness she expected from her students. Without thinking twice, Clara knelt beside Maya and whispered, "Maya, your hair looks untidy today. Did you forget to comb it?" Maya froze, her cheeks flushing red. She mumbled something under her breath, avoiding Clara's gaze. Unfamiliar with how to handle the situation delicately, Clara pressed further. "You know, grooming is important. It shows respect for yourself and others." What Clara didn't realize was that Maya hadn't forgotten anything. In fact, Maya had spent hours carefully styling her hair that morning, using techniques passed down from her grandmother. For Maya, her hair wasn't just hair, it was a connection to her culture, her family, and her identity. And now, sitting there under Clara's scrutinizing gaze, she felt exposed and humiliated. Clara, unaware of the weight behind Maya's silence, made a decision she thought would solve the problem quickly. "Let me help you," she said gently, pulling out a pair of scissors from her desk drawer. Before Maya could protest or even understand what was happening, Clara began trimming away the loose strands. The other students watched in stunned silence as more and more of Maya's hair fell to the floor. By the time Clara stepped back, satisfied with her handiwork, Maya's head was nearly shaved clean. Tears streamed down Maya's face, but she remained silent, too shocked to speak. The classroom felt heavy with tension, like the air before a storm. None of the other students dared to say a word, unsure whether they should intervene or stay out of it. When the bell finally rang, signaling the end of the school day, Maya bolted out of the room without looking back. Her friends followed close, behind, whispering words of comfort as they tried to make sense of what had just happened. Meanwhile, Clara stood alone in the empty classroom, staring at the scattered strands of hair on the floor. Only then did doubt creep into her mind. Had she gone too far? Was there another way to address the situation? Little did she know, this moment would set off a chain of events that would challenge everything she thought she knew about teaching: empathy and the power of forgiveness. What happened next would not only change Maya's life but also leave an indelible mark on the entire community. Maya walked home that afternoon in a daze, her heart pounding with a mix of anger, shame, and confusion. Her reflection in the windows of passing cars startled her. It wasn't the familiar face she knew, but someone unrecognizable, stripped of an essential part of who she was. Every step felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of what had happened pressed down on her shoulders. When Maya stepped through the front door, her mother, Evelyn, was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The aroma of spices filled the air, a comforting smell that usually brought a smile to Maya's face. But today, everything felt different. Evelyn turned around, spatula in hand, and froze when she saw her daughter. Her eyes widened, and the spatula clattered to the floor. Maya? Evelyn whispered. Disbelief etched across her face. What happened to your hair? Maya burst into tears, unable to hold back any longer. Through sobs, she recounted the events of the day, the way Miss Bennet had singled her out, ignored her protests, and shaved her head without permission. Evelyn listened silently, her expression shifting from shock to fury. By the time Maya finished speaking, Evelyn's hands were clenched into fists at her sides. "This isn't right," Evelyn muttered under her breath. "This is more than just a mistake, it's disrespectful." Evelyn immediately called Maya's father, Marcus, who worked late shifts at the local factory. When he heard the story, his voice boomed through the phone with outrage. "We're not letting this slide," he said firmly. "No one treats our daughter like this." The next morning, news of the incident spread quickly throughout Maplewood Middle School. Whispers echoed in the hallways as students discussed what had happened. Some sympathized with Maya, while others giggled nervously, unsure how to react. A few teachers overheard snippets of the conversation and exchanged uneasy glances, wondering if they should intervene. Meanwhile, Clara woke up feeling unsettled. Sleep had eluded her the previous night as memories of the classroom replayed in her mind. She had convinced herself initially that shaving Maya's head was a practical solution, a way to teach responsibility and neatness. But now, doubts gnawed at her conscience. Something about Maya's tearful exit lingered in her thoughts, haunting her like a shadow she couldn't shake. At school, Clara arrived early, hoping to prepare for the day ahead. As she organized her lesson plans, Principal Thompson knocked on her classroom door. His tall frame loomed in the doorway, his face unreadable. "Clara, can I see you in my office?" he asked, his tone neutral but firm. Her stomach churned as she followed him down the hallway. Inside the office, Evelyn and Marcus Johnson sat across from Principal Thompson, their expressions stern. Evelyn held Maya's hand tightly, offering silent support. When Clara entered, all eyes turned to her. Principal Thompson gestured for Clara to sit. "There's been a serious complaint regarding yesterday's incident involving Maya," he began. "I need to hear your side of the story." Clara swallowed hard, her throat dry. She explained her reasoning, emphasizing her desire to maintain standards of grooming and discipline. But as she spoke, she noticed the icy glare from Maya's parents. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "My daughter's hair isn't just hair. It's a symbol of her heritage, her identity. What you did was humiliating and completely inappropriate. You disrespected not only Maya, but our entire family." Clara opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time, she saw the depth of the harm she had caused. Tears welled up in her eyes as guilt washed over her. She hadn't meant to hurt anyone. She truly believed she was doing the right thing. But good intentions weren't enough to undo the damage. Outside the office, word of the meeting reached other staff members. Mrs. Patel, the art teacher, approached Clara during lunch break. "You know, sometimes we forget that our actions have consequences beyond what we intend," she said gently. "Maybe it's time to think about how Maya must be feeling right now." Clara nodded, her appetite gone. That evening, she sat alone in her apartment, staring at the wall. Images of Maya's tear-streaked face haunted her. She realized she needed to do something, but what? How could she possibly make amends for such a profound mistake? Unbeknownst to Clara, Maya and her family were also grappling with the aftermath. At home, Maya refused to look in the mirror, wrapping a scarf around her head whenever she left her room. Her confidence, once so vibrant, seemed shattered. Yet amidst the pain, a spark of determination began to grow within her. With her parents' encouragement, Maya decided to speak up, not just for herself but for others who might face similar injustices. Little did anyone know this decision would ignite a movement that would bring the entire community together and force them all to confront uncomfortable truths about empathy, understanding, and the power of forgiveness. The days following the incident were heavy for everyone involved. Maya stayed home from school, unable to face her classmates or Miss Bennet. Her parents called the school to request an extended leave, explaining that their daughter needed time to process what had happened. Principal Thompson reluctantly agreed but made it clear that they would need to address the situation soon. At home, Maya spent most of her time in her room, drawing pictures and writing poems in a worn-out notebook. Art had always been her refuge, a way to express emotions she couldn't put into words. This time, however, her creations were different. Instead of colorful landscapes or whimsical animals, her sketches depicted bold, defiant images. A girl standing tall, despite missing hair, surrounded by swirling patterns that resembled roots, growing deep into the earth. Her poetry carried themes of resilience and identity, each line brimming with raw emotion. Evelyn noticed the change in Maya's artwork and decided to sit down with her one evening. "You've got something powerful here," Evelyn said softly, holding up one of Maya's drawings. "Your feelings are coming through loud and clear." Maya shrugged, avoiding her mother's gaze. "It doesn't matter. No one will listen anyway." "Yes, they will," Evelyn replied firmly. "People care about fairness, Maya. They just need to hear your story. Maybe it's time you let them." Though hesitant at first, Maya began to consider her mother's words. Deep down, she wanted justice, not just for herself, but for others, who might feel powerless in similar situations. With her parents' encouragement, she started drafting a letter to share with the school board. In it, she described how Miss Bennett's actions made her feel stripped of her dignity and disconnected from her culture. She emphasized that this wasn't just about her. It was about respecting differences and understanding the importance of representation. Meanwhile, Clara wrestled with guilt and self-doubt. Every night she replayed the incident in her mind, searching for answers she couldn't find. During staff meetings, whispers followed her wherever she went. Some colleagues offered quiet support, reminding her that mistakes happen, while others kept their distance, unsure how to approach her. One afternoon, Mrs. Patel invited Clara to join her after school for coffee. Over steaming mugs, Mrs. Patel broached the topic gently. "I know you didn't mean harm, Clara," she said. "But intention isn't everything, it's impact that matters." Clara nodded, tears welling up again. "I don't know how to fix this. I've apologized to Principal Thompson and Maya's parents, but it feels like nothing I do can make things right." Mrs. Patel leaned forward, her expression kind yet firm. "Sometimes saying sorry isn't enough. Actions speak louder than words. If you truly want to make amends, you'll have to show Maya and everyone else that you're willing to learn and grow from this experience." Those words lingered in Clara's mind long after the conversation ended. That weekend, she visited the local library and checked out books on cultural sensitivity and inclusive teaching practices. She read stories written by people from diverse backgrounds, gaining insight into experiences vastly different from her own. Slowly, she began to understand why Maya's hair was so meaningful, not just as a personal choice, but as a symbol of heritage and pride. Back at school, preparations were underway for a special meeting between Maya's family, the school administration, and members of the community. The Johnsons insisted that Maya be allowed to speak during the session, believing it was crucial for her voice to be heard. Reluctantly, Principal Thompson agreed, though he worried about the potential backlash. The day of the meeting, the school auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and students filled the seats, eager to understand what had transpired. When Maya stepped onto the stage alongside her parents, the room fell silent. Wrapped in a bright scarf adorned with intricate patterns, she looked small, but determined. With trembling hands, Maya unfolded her letter and began to read aloud. Her voice wavered at first, but as she continued, it grew stronger. She spoke about the significance of her hair, the pain of losing it without consent, and the importance of respecting diversity. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. When Maya finished, applause erupted, soft at first, then thunderous. Even Clara, seated near the back, clapped until her palms stung. For the first time since the incident, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this moment could be the start of healing, not just for Maya, but for the entire community. What no one realized yet was that Maya's courage would inspire others to speak up too, sparking conversations that would reshape the school's Ado culture forever. The impact of Maya's speech rippled through the community like a stone dropped into still water. For days afterward, conversations buzzed in classrooms, hallways, and even at dinner tables across Maplewood. People who had previously been silent about issues of diversity and inclusion now felt emboldened to share their thoughts. Some praised Maya's bravery, while others expressed regret for not speaking up sooner about similar experiences they or their loved ones had faced. At school, students began organizing informal discussions during lunch breaks. A group of 8th graders started a culture club, inviting peers to share stories about their traditions, languages, and customs. One boy brought in a traditional drum from his Native American heritage. Another girl demonstrated how to wear a sari, explaining its significance in her family. These small acts of sharing created a sense of unity among students, fostering mutual respect and understanding. For Miss Clara Bennett, the meeting marked a turning point. Listening to Maya's words had shaken her deeply, forcing her to confront uncomfortable truths about herself and her teaching methods. She realized that being well-meaning wasn't enough. She needed to actively educate herself on the diverse backgrounds of her students. Determined to do better, Clara approached Principal Thompson with an idea: host workshops for teachers focused on cultural sensitivity and inclusivity. Principal Thompson was initially skeptical. "Do you think this is the right time?" he asked, frowning. "The school is already under scrutiny." "It's exactly the right time," Clara replied firmly. "If we don't address these issues now, nothing will change. We owe it to our students and to ourselves to learn from this." After some deliberation, Principal Thompson agreed, and arrangements were made to bring in experts from the local university's education department. The first workshop took place 2 weeks later in the school library. Teachers gathered around a large table, notebooks in hand, as Dr. Elena Martinez, a professor specializing in multicultural education, led the session. Dr. Martinez began by asking everyone to reflect on their own biases and assumptions. "We all carry preconceived notions based on our upbringing and experiences," she explained gently. "The key is recognizing them so we can challenge them." She then shared examples of microaggressions, small, often unintentional actions, or comments that could alienate students, and encouraged the teachers to consider how such behaviors might affect those around them. Clara listened intently, taking copious notes. When Dr. Martinez opened the floor for questions, Clara hesitated before raising her hand. What if you've already made a mistake? How do you move forward when trust has been broken?" Dr. Martinez smiled warmly. "Acknowledging your mistake is the first step. From there, consistency is key. Show your students that you're committed to learning and growing alongside them. It won't happen overnight, but every effort counts." Inspired by the workshop, Clara decided to take further action. She reached out to Mrs. Patel, who had become something of a mentor to her, and asked for advice on rebuilding her relationship with Maya. "Start small," Mrs. Patel suggested. "Ask Maya what she needs, not what you think she needs. Listen more than you speak." Taking this advice to heart, Clara requested a private meeting with Maya and her parents. Though hesitant at first, Evelyn and Marcus agreed, believing it was important for Maya to see Clara's willingness to make amends. The meeting took place in Principal Thompson's office, where Clara sat nervously across from the Johnsons. "I want to apologize again," Clara began, her voice trembling. "Not just for what I did, but for failing to understand its impact. I'm working hard to educate myself, and I hope someday you'll see that I truly mean to change." Maya studied Clara carefully, searching for sincerity in her expression. After a long pause, she nodded slightly. "Okay," she said quietly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. In the weeks that followed, Clara made deliberate efforts to connect with Maya. She assigned art projects celebrating cultural identity and encouraged Maya to share her work with the class. Slowly but surely, Maya began returning to school, her confidence rebuilding piece by piece. Unbeknownst to anyone, however, this journey of healing would soon face a new challenge, one that would test the strength of the bonds forming within the community. As tensions simmered beneath the surface, it became clear that true progress required more than individual efforts. It demanded collective action. As the weeks turned into months, Maplewood Middle School began to transform in subtle yet profound ways. The Culture Club, once a small gathering of curious students, grew into a thriving hub of activity. Posters celebrating diversity lined the hallways, and bulletin boards showcased student artwork inspired by their unique backgrounds. Conversations about identity, respect, and inclusion became commonplace, fostering an environment where differences were not only accepted, but celebrated. However, not everyone embraced these changes with open arms. Some parents and community members voiced concerns, arguing that too much emphasis on cultural awareness was unnecessary, or worse, divisive. Letters poured into Principal Thompson's office, some praising the school's efforts and others criticizing them sharply. Among the critics was Mr. Harold Grayson, a longtime resident of Maplewood and father of 2 students at the school. He believed the focus on diversity detracted from traditional values and insisted that schools should stick to academics rather than social experiments. Mr. Grayson's complaints gained traction when he addressed the school board during a public meeting. Standing before a packed room, he spoke passionately against what he called forced inclusivity. His words struck a chord with several attendees, sparking heated debates between supporters of the new initiatives and those who opposed them. Tensions rose as voices clashed, leaving many unsure of how to move forward. Amidst this turmoil, Maya found herself caught in the crossfire. While she appreciated the growing support for her cause, she also felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her young shoulders. Friends encouraged her to keep speaking out, but the constant attention left her exhausted. At home, Evelyn noticed the toll it was taking on her daughter and suggested they take a step back. "You've already done so much," Evelyn said one evening, brushing Maya's scarf gently. "No one expects you to carry the entire burden alone. It's okay to rest." Maya nodded, though doubt lingered in her mind. She worried that stepping away might undo all the progress they'd made. Still, she agreed to scale back her involvement temporarily, focusing instead on finishing her final art project for the semester, a mural depicting interconnected routes spreading across a vibrant landscape. Meanwhile, Clara faced challenges of her own. Though she had earned tentative forgiveness from Maya and her family, skepticism remained among some colleagues and parents. Rumors spread that she was being too soft or coddling certain students, accusations that stung deeply. Despite the criticism, Clara refused to waver. She continued attending workshops, reading books, and incorporating inclusive practices into her lessons. Slowly, her classroom became a safe space where every student felt seen and valued. One day, as Clara supervised recess, she overheard a group of students discussing the ongoing controversy. One boy, a 7th grader named Liam, argued vehemently against the changes. "Why do we have to talk about all this stuff?" he complained. "It's just making things worse." Clara approached cautiously, kneeling beside the group. "Liam, can I ask why you feel that way?" she asked gently. Liam hesitated, then shrugged. "I don't see what the big deal is. Everyone's always talking about fairness, but it doesn't seem fair to me if it makes people angry." Clara nodded thoughtfully. "That's a valid concern. Change can be uncomfortable, especially when it challenges the way we're used to doing things. But sometimes, discomfort is necessary for growth." She went on to explain how understanding each other's perspectives could strengthen their community, using examples from history and everyday life. By the end of their conversation, Liam looked thoughtful, though not entirely convinced. Still, Clara considered it a small victory, a seed planted in fertile ground. Back at home, Marcus Johnson decided to address the rising tensions head-on. A skilled public speaker, he volunteered to speak at the next school board meeting, hoping to bridge the divide between opposing sides. On the night of the meeting, the auditorium overflowed with attendees, the air thick with anticipation. Marcus stood at the podium, his voice steady and clear. "Change is never easy," he began. "But neither is staying silent while injustice persists. What happened to my daughter wasn't just about hair, it was about dignity, respect, and the right to be who you are without fear of judgment. We're not asking anyone to abandon tradition. We're asking you to expand your definition of it, to make room for everyone. His words resonated deeply, drawing applause from many in the audience. Even some of Mr. Grayson's supporters appeared moved, whispering amongst themselves as Marcus returned to his seat. Though the debate wasn't resolved overnight, Marcus's speech marked a turning point. People began reaching out to one another, seeking common ground rather than division. And through it all, Maya quietly worked on her mural, knowing that every brushstroke represented hope for herself, her school, and the future they were building together. The weeks following Marcus Johnson's speech at the school board meeting marked a shift in the community. While tensions hadn't disappeared entirely, there was a growing willingness among residents to engage in meaningful dialogue. Conversations that had once been heated and defensive began to soften, replaced by genuine curiosity and attempts to understand differing perspectives. At Maplewood Middle School, Principal Thompson decided it was time to take another step forward. He proposed hosting a community day, an event designed to bring together students, teachers, parents, and local residents in celebration of diversity and unity. The idea quickly gained traction, with volunteers stepping up to organize activities, performances, and workshops. Maya, inspired by her father's words and encouraged by her mother, agreed to help design a central art installation for the event, a collaborative mural where everyone could contribute their own piece. Clara threw herself into preparations for Community Day, determined to play an active role in fostering connection. She worked alongside Mrs. Patel to create a storytelling booth where students and families could share personal anecdotes about their cultures, traditions, or experiences, overcoming challenges. Clara also invited a local poet to lead a spoken word session, hoping to inspire participants to express themselves creatively. As the day approached, excitement built throughout the town. Flyers adorned shop windows, and announcements aired on the local radio station. On the morning of Community Day, the school grounds buzzed with energy. Tables lined the courtyard, offering everything from traditional dishes to craft stations where children could make friendship bracelets or paint tiles representing their heritage. Maya stood near the mural, guiding visitors as they added colorful strokes to the canvas. Her scarf fluttered gently in the breeze as she explained the symbolism behind the design. Each root represents someone's story, she said, pointing to the intricate patterns spreading outward. Together, they form something strong and beautiful. Nearby, Clara watched quietly, marveling at how far Maya had come since the incident. She felt a pang of guilt, but also pride that her former student had grown into such a resilient and inspiring young leader. Summoning her courage, Clara approached Maya during a quiet moment. "Your mural is incredible," Clara said softly. "It really shows how connected we all are." Maya looked up, surprised but not unwelcoming. "Thanks," she replied after a pause. "It's kind of like what you've been trying to do, isn't it? Bringing people together?" Clara smiled, faintly, touched by the observation. "I guess so. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm trying." Maya nodded slowly. "That's what matters." Their brief exchange carried more weight than either realized. For Clara, it was validation, a sign that her efforts were beginning to mend the trust she'd broken. For Maya, it was closure, a recognition that growth and healing were possible, even after pain. Elsewhere on the grounds, Mr. Grayson wandered through the festivities, his arms crossed tightly across his chest. Though skeptical of the event, he had reluctantly attended out of curiosity. As he passed the storytelling booth, he overheard a young girl sharing a story about her grandmother teaching her to bake traditional bread. The warmth in the girl's voice caught him off guard, stirring memories of his own childhood spent learning carpentry from his father. Curious despite himself, Mr. Grayson stopped to listen. Another participant, a middle-aged man, spoke next, recounting how his family had immigrated to Maplewood decades ago and faced prejudice before finding acceptance. Each story unfolded like a thread weaving together the fabric of the community, revealing shared struggles and triumphs. By the end of the session, Mr. Grayson found himself lingering, reluctant to leave. When the facilitator, a cheerful woman named Mrs. Patel, invited him to share a story if he wished, he hesitated. Then, clearing his throat, he began to speak haltingly about his love for woodworking and how it connected him to generations past. To his surprise, the group listened intently, nodding and smiling as he finished. Later that afternoon, during the closing ceremony, Principal Thompson addressed the crowd. "Today has shown us that our differences don't divide us, they enrich us," he said, his voice ringing clear across the field. "We've taken a big step toward understanding one another, but this is just the beginning. Let's keep building bridges instead of walls." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over the gathering, Maya gazed at the completed mural. It was vibrant and alive, a testament to the power of collaboration and empathy. Beside her, Evelyn placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've done something amazing here," Evelyn said proudly. "This will remind people of what we can achieve when we work together." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with hope. But deep down, she knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges, moments of doubt and setbacks along the way. Yet standing amidst her friends, family, and neighbors, she believed, for the first time, that true change was possible. Unbeknownst to anyone, however, a new chapter was about to unfold, one that would test the strength of the bonds they had forged and push them to confront their deepest fears. The weeks following Community Day brought a renewed sense of purpose to Maplewood Middle School and the surrounding town. For the first time in months, there was a palpable shift in the air, a quiet optimism that hinted at brighter days ahead. Conversations once marked by tension now carried tones of curiosity and mutual respect. The mural Maya had helped create stood proudly near the school entrance, its vibrant colors serving as a daily reminder of unity and resilience. But life is rarely without challenges, and just as the community began to settle into this fragile peace, an unexpected event threatened to test their progress. One crisp autumn morning, news spread quickly through the school. A fire had broken out overnight at the local library, destroying countless books, artifacts, and records, including materials donated by families to celebrate cultural heritage. The loss hit hard. Students who had contributed family heirlooms or photographs were devastated, while others mourned the destruction of resources they relied on for learning. Principal Thompson called an emergency assembly to address the situation, his voice heavy with emotion. "This is a painful moment for all of us," he said, "but I believe we can turn it into an opportunity to rebuild not just the library, but our commitment to preserving and honoring each other's stories." Inspired by his words, Maya approached her parents that evening with an idea. "What if we organize a book drive?" she suggested. "We could ask people to donate books, especially ones that reflect different cultures and histories. It'll be like starting fresh, but stronger." Evelyn and Marcus immediately supported the plan, helping Maya draft flyers and reach out to neighbors. Word of the initiative spread rapidly, drawing contributions from across the community. Even Mr. Grayson, moved by the collective effort, donated several woodworking manuals passed down through his family, along with a handwritten note expressing gratitude for being included. Meanwhile, Clara took charge of coordinating volunteers to sort and catalog the incoming donations. Working alongside students, teachers, and parents, she found herself immersed in stories she'd never encountered before, tales of courage, migration, and tradition. Each book felt like a bridge connecting her to perspectives far beyond her own experience. As the weeks passed, the makeshift library space began to fill with shelves lined with diverse titles. Maya, determined to ensure no one felt excluded, created a special section dedicated to student-authored works. Her own poetry collection, inspired by her journey, became one of the first entries. When she saw younger students flipping through the pages, their eyes wide with wonder, she felt a surge of pride. One afternoon, as Clara arranged books in the new cultural heritage section, Maya appeared beside her holding a small box. Inside was a handmade hairpiece adorned with intricate beadwork, a gift from her grandmother. "I want to put this here," Maya explained softly. It represents where I come from, and how far I've come. Clara nodded, her throat tightening. With emotion. It's beautiful, Maya. Thank you for trusting me enough to share it. Maya smiled faintly. You've earned it. The official reopening of the library coincided with the end of the semester, drawing a crowd larger than anyone anticipated. Families gathered under strings of twinkling lights, sharing food, music, and laughter. As Principal Thompson cut the ribbon, applause erupted, echoing through the night. Maya stood nearby, clutching her mother's hand, feeling a profound sense of belonging she hadn't known was possible. Later that evening, as the festivities wound down, Clara found herself standing alone near the mural. Its roots seemed even more vibrant now, illuminated by soft lantern light. She traced a finger over one of the painted patterns, thinking about everything that had transpired since the day she shaved Maya's head. Mistakes had been made, wounds had been opened, but healing had followed, and with it, growth. In that moment, Clara realized something important. Change wasn't about erasing the past, it was about learning from it. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly have its bumps, she knew the community was stronger for having faced them together. As Maya looked around at the faces of her friends, teachers, and neighbors, she understood the same truth. Life wasn't perfect, it never would be, but every act of kindness, every attempt at understanding, brought them closer to a world where everyone belonged. And so, beneath the starlit sky, the people of Maplewood came together, not as individuals, defined by their differences but as a united whole, ready to face whatever lay ahead.